Hey guys, Pickle700 here, and in today's video we're going to be fixing a problem in a few electrical panels around my house that I discovered a few months ago, but I haven't got around to fixing it yet. So in today's video we're going to be fixing that problem and talking about why the problem is a big deal and why it needs to be fixed. The problem in question is having your neutral and ground bonded in subpanels such as this panel right here. Neutral and ground should not be bonded in any panel other than the main service panel or your first panel, or if you have a disconnect combined with a meter socket, that's where it will be bonded basically at your first disconnect or your very first way you can disconnect your electrical system. So let's start off with this panel right here, panel D, because I've labeled my panels and every single circuit in here so I know exactly if I go to a junction box what circuit it is. So this panel is, of course, the sub panel is getting fed from a 30 amp breaker inside the house, actually fed from another sub panel then from the main panel. So this has a 100 amp rated breaker but only getting fed 30 amps. So let's open up this panel. And one thing I should mention is I'm going to be doing this live since I'm very confident and comfortable working around energized equipment. But if you don't feel comfortable and safe doing it, I would suggest you don't. But I've been in this panel before and it's a very clean, pretty safe panel to work in. So let's take this panel cover off. So now at this point we can't actually access our bonding screw because we had this separate service section of the panel. Therefore, if you killed this main breaker, you'd be safe because all of this stuff, the buses, would all be de-energized, but these conductors would always remain hot if this was fed from a meter right before, if this was the main panel. So we still need to get into this section of the panel though. Now, I'm not sure if you can see that right there, but there is our bonding screw. So that screw right there bonds this neutral right here, which should be marked in white tape, that this is not a hot conductor, that this is in fact a neutral. So this bonds this neutral to the actual cabinet right here of the panel. So we're going to start by removing this bonding screw, since that should not be there. There we go. So now I'm gonna take this somewhere beside the panel, and we're also gonna rectify the issue of the neutral not being marked, because that should ideally be marked with some white tape. There we go. So at this point, this is pretty clear that this is a neutral and not a third phase. As you can see, first phase, second phase, and then this is very clear that this is not a third phase of a three-phase system. So now that our bonding screw is removed and this has been marked, haven't gone completely down, but as close as I can really get because it's a pain with our first phase right there. So bonding screw's gone, neutral's marked, panel cover can go back on. So first, we have to put our service section of the panel back on first. there we go. This panel is all done. Time to move on to the next panel. So the next panel is a far, far journey away into the laundry room / utility room. Right here, panel C. So I have panel A is the main one, panel B is the second one, and C, and then that was D. This panel's on here a little bit more snug, and the rest just kind of stiff on those breakers. None of those came out, so that's all good. And we'll take out our service section. This panel's actually done in aluminum, I believe, not copper. I'm not a big fan of that right there, how this metal piece is pushed down pretty good on that conductor right there. I think that might be 3 gauge, 2 gauge, can't remember. Might even be copper, I don't exactly remember what this is. It's good for 100 amps though, whatever it is. Yeah, so as you can see, this is aluminum, and there is that anti-oxidization paste on there, which is a good thing to see. And right here, here's our grounding or bonding screw that bonds the neutral to ground, which should not be in this panel. So a little story with this panel, I actually went to take this out before, and I did something dumb because I was doing it live and I didn't think there would be any issue. But I started removing this, and all the lights started flickering. Everything went dead, so I quickly tightened it back up so there wasn't any arcing. And that's because this neutral right here in the main panel was not actually landed on the neutral bus. It was just cut, sticking down the side of the panel right there. So because of that, the only reasons any of these circuits were working is because that ground screw was left in, and this ground was being used as the path back to the main panel for all the unbalanced current, and everything that the neutral should be doing was being done through this ground. And that's obviously a problem because this ground, or this bonding wire, is not the same size as this neutral. It's only meant for fault currents in emergencies and should not be used any other time, just for a fault current to trip whatever breaker's feeding whatever's going to ground. So because obviously that wasn't bonded right there, everything was going through that, and that had been like that for about a year. I actually have a picture in the panel, in the main panel, of this neutral that was not bonded and was just sitting there. Here's the picture. Not sure if you guys can see that in the main panel. There was that neutral right there that was not put onto that bus. That neutral was just hanging right there, not bonded. So everything was going through this ground. So the reason this was a dangerous situation, not really for me, because nothing was really going to hurt me, but more for everything on this panel, I did have a decent chance of frying or damaging some equipment, being that I had just broken a neutral. Breaking a hot's one thing, but breaking a neutral, especially electronic equipment, is really, really bad for it. So now that I know this is bonded, that should not happen this time. Just in case there's any chance of this happening again, I'm going to turn off some of the big circuits that could have some things on it that could be killed. Why I'm doing this and not just turning off the whole panel, I don't know. just leave that one on because that's my light. Other than that though, there we go. That's exactly how it's supposed to go. There we go. Now I probably just screwed up the time on some appliances, but that's better than killing things. Take that out of there, since that should never need to go back in. And now let's put this panel back together. So guys, now that this panel is done, there still is the main panel, which should have the bonding screw in, but then there's the old main panel. It used to be the main 100 amp panel, but now it's a sub panel because now it's getting fed from the new 200 amp panel. But the situation gets a little bit more complicated over there, and I'll show you why. It's like the dog wants in. So, if I go down the hallway here to where the main panel is. Sorry, it's a little bit noisy because the furnace is on. Here's the main panel. So let me just set up this light a little bit better here. So this panel needs to be bonded because this is the main panel, 200 amp breaker right there, and then this 100 amp breaker right here feeds this panel right here. This one is that last panel I just did. This one is air handler unit, so the furnace, and this is the outdoor air handling unit. So this one, this old Federal Pacific, these things are a piece of crap, is not the main panel anymore, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's still left bonded, but it still has grounding rods. So I'm not exactly sure what should be done in this situation, because there's still a grounding rod, but if we follow it down here from this, through this armored piece of sleeve, so then it's underground in the slab, then it goes under here. Put these lights in here like a year ago. And then there's this old grounding rod right here, as you can see, which is very loose. But, so this was the old water service, so it comes up from the slab right there, is bonded to this still, which is in the ground. So this still goes out to the road and the ground, it's just disconnected in the ground. But then it might be that one too. I really don't know which one it is. I think it's that one right there, but I'm not exactly sure. Actually, it's probably that one because that one has the shutoff in it, but that might be on the road. I'm not sure. I don't know water stuff too good. So if this is the ground coming up from the panel or the bond, then it doesn't jump over to here anymore now that the pipe's been cut. So it's basically useless, because this might just go through the slab to a different part of the house. This might be the main water feed right there, and then it goes to this ground rod and then underground to another ground rod over there. But there's now new ground rods. So this situation is a little bit complicated just because I don't know what's what here. So right now, if that is providing any bit of grounding, then the neutral is also bonded to that panel and everything. So it doesn't make a massive difference if the ground is established at that panel versus one panel over. It's kind of a tricky situation just because I'm not exactly sure what's going on, so I'm going to leave that panel however it is. Whether it's the bonding screw is out, then the neutral is not bonded until the first panel. If it's in, then I guess it's going to ground rods at that panel. And if those ground rods aren't really doing anything, if they're disconnected, it's still bonded to the CAN, which is bonded to the main panel, so it's still going to get there in some way. So, like I said, a little bit of a tricky situation. I'm not 100% sure what's going on, so in that case, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. So I apologize for me not really having this good answer for you guys and explaining what's going to happen with that the old main panel. So like I said, I'm just going to leave it for now since I'm not sure of the situation and I don't want to be going into a situation and possibly disconnecting something that is helping, or maybe I'm making it safer. Because I don't know, I don't want to touch it, so I'm going to leave it like that, and if I ever find out that it needs to get changed, well, I'll probably make a video of that. So guys, that's about it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, and if you have any comments, leave those down below. Thanks for watching.